I opened my phone on a Sunday afternoon when I was 28 and saw that an old acquaintance from college had just bought a $400,000 house with a pristine lawn. And actually, no, let me tell you what I really felt in that exact second. It wasn't happiness for him. It was a cold, sinking panic that I was completely running out of time. If you constantly feel like you are 10 steps behind where you should be in life right now, it is not because you failed at money or work ethic. It is because you are measuring your daily reality against a scoreboard that is completely fake.
I'm Jordan, and for years I carried this quiet, heavy embarrassment that everyone around me had figured out the secret to adulthood while I was still treading water. But the longer I worked around high earners, the more I realized that almost no one is actually winning the race they are pretending to run. Today, we are taking apart the psychological traps that make smart people feel like they are permanently lagging behind. And along the way, I'm going to unpack what I call the catch-up tax, the single devastating financial mistake desperate people make when they try to jump 3 years ahead in 6 months. Hold on to that, because it is quietly destroying the savings of people earning 6 figures right now. Later on, I will also give you the 5-year blinders rule that allowed me to double my savings rate by doing something that looks completely boring to everyone else. But first, we have to talk about the arbitrary deadlines governing your life.
Chapter 1. The imaginary deadlines we bow to.
From the moment you graduate, society hands you an invisible schedule. You are supposed to have your career figured out by 25, buy a home by 30, and have a massive investment portfolio by 35. When you hit one of those birthdays without checking the box, your brain treats it like an emergency alarm going off. You start looking at your checking account not as a financial tool, but as a report card grading your personal worth as a human being.
I remember the exact night I turned 30. I was sitting on the living room floor of a cramped rented apartment, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes, eating cheap takeout. My salary was objectively good, but my internal monologue was brutal. My parents had purchased a 3-bedroom home when they were 26. Here I was at 30, still paying rent and chipping away at student loans. I felt like a profound personal failure. But when you hold yourself to an outdated 50-year-old economic schedule, every single delay feels like a character flaw instead of a structural shift in the world around you.
Chapter 2. The Phantom Benchmark. Comparing insides to outsides.
The fastest way to make yourself feel miserable is to compare your internal reality with someone else's external presentation. When you look at your own life, you see every messy detail. The credit card bill coming next Tuesday, the anxiety about layoffs, the car that needs new brakes. But when you look at your peers on social media or at a dinner party, you only see the polished surface. You see the vacation photos, the new SUV, and the job promotion announcement.
I saw a guy on Instagram last week lecturing people about wealth mindset while leaning against a $100,000 sports car parked in front of a modern architectural villa. I found out later the car was leased on a 72-month loan and the villa was rented on Airbnb for 4 hours just to shoot videos. We are literally driving ourselves into clinical depression trying to match the spending habits of people who are faking their own financial stability. When your benchmark is an illusion, no amount of income will ever make you feel like you have caught up.
Chapter 3. The Invisible Debt Behind the Curtain.
We need to talk about what is actually funding the lifestyles of the people who seem miles ahead of you. Because we assume that when someone buys a luxury home or takes 3 European vacations a year, they are doing it with cash they safely accumulated. But the math usually tells a completely different story. Most of the people looking down at you from the front of the pack are running on financial fumes, one missed paycheck away from a total collapse.
A few years ago, I felt so behind in my career that I invited a former colleague out for drinks just to ask for mentorship. He was 2 years younger than me, drove a brand new electric sedan, and lived in a penthouse loft downtown. After 3 drinks, the conversation shifted away from business strategies. He leaned across the table and told me he had $42,000 in high-interest credit card debt and hadn't slept through the night in 4 months. I sat there holding my glass, completely stunned. I had spent 2 years hating myself for not keeping up with a guy who was drowning in secret liability. That night changed how I look at success forever. Right now, you have to choose which timeline you are going to live on. Are you going to run a frantic sprint on someone else's rented track just to look like you are winning? Or are you willing to walk at your own steady pace to build real, unshakable wealth that actually belongs to you? You cannot do both. If you are ready to unsubscribe from the fake milestones and build genuine independence on your own terms, that is exactly why I created our weekly private newsletter. Every Sunday morning, we share simple, practical frameworks to help high earners automate their wealth without losing their mental peace. The link to join is right down in the description below.
Chapter 4. The Panic of Trying to Catch Up. The real danger of feeling behind isn't the sadness, it is the impatience. When you feel like you are running out of time, you start making desperate decisions to skip ahead. Let me tell you about Sarah. Sarah is 34, earns $140,000 a year in tech sales, and has $60,000 safely sitting in a high-yield savings account. By any objective global standard, she is wealthy. But Sarah's younger sister just bought a house, and Sarah panicked. Instead of continuing her steady monthly index fund investments, Sarah decided she needed to double her net worth by the end of the year just to feel like she wasn't falling behind. She pulled $40,000 out of her safe savings and dumped it into highly speculative, leveraged cryptocurrency options because someone online promised 10 times returns. Within 3 weeks, the market dropped and her $40,000 turned into $6,000. Out of sheer embarrassment and panic over feeling late, Sarah wiped out 4 years of disciplined labor in 21 days. Desperation makes smart people jump off cliffs, hoping they will learn to fly on the way down.
Chapter 5. The Hidden Cost of the Catch-up Tax.
Remember earlier when I mentioned the catch-up tax? This is exactly where it collects its toll. The catch-up tax is the massive premium you pay when you try to compress a 5-year wealth-building process into 6 months. You pay it when you buy a house over your budget because interest rates might rise, or when you take out a massive loan to buy into a business you don't understand just to feel like an entrepreneur.
I know exactly how devastating this is because I paid the catch-up tax myself. Back when I felt desperately behind my college friends, I wired $15,000, money I'd spent 2 grueling years saving, into a private real estate syndicate run by an acquaintance who promised 60% annual returns. I didn't verify the underwriting. I didn't care about the risk. You just wanted to skip ahead 3 years on the wealth scoreboard. That investment collapsed completely 12 months later. When you refuse to accept the boring early stages of slow growth because your ego hurts, you end up paying the catch-up tax over and over until your bank account is empty.
Chapter 6. Why Progress Feels Like Stagnation.
One of the hardest psychological hurdles to clear is that real financial progress feels almost identical to stagnation for the first several years. When you do everything right, paying off debt, funding a retirement account, keeping your expenses low, your net worth moves upward at a glacial pace. You check your investment balance after 14 months of intense discipline and think, wait, is that it? That is barely enough to buy a used car. This is where intelligent people sabotage themselves.
Because our brains are wired for linear gratification, we look at the slow curve of compound growth and assume the system isn't working. You watch someone else launch a flashy venture or buy a luxury watch, and the quiet discipline of buying index funds suddenly feels like a sucker's game. But compound growth is a sleeping giant. It spends years building an invisible underground root system before it shoots into the sky. If you dig up the seed every 6 months to check if it is growing, you will never see the harvest.
Chapter 7. Unsubscribing from someone else's race.
The turning point arrives the day you decide to radically unsubscribe from the comparison economy. You cannot maintain emotional peace while consuming media that is explicitly designed to make you feel inadequate. I spent an entire Sunday afternoon muting and unfollowing every single social media account that triggered financial anxiety in my chest. The lifestyle influencers, the luxury watch collectors, even acquaintances who only posted bragging updates. Protecting your attention is just as important as protecting your bank account. When you clear out the constant noise of other people's fabricated milestones, the internal ticking clock suddenly stops. You realize that you don't need a $400,000 house by 32 just because your coworkers have one. Financial independence begins when you stop letting strangers dictate your personal definition of enough. Once you define what enough looks like for your own life, the race ends immediately.
Chapter 8. The 5-Year Blinders Framework.
Here is the exact operational framework that allowed me to escape comparison anxiety and build real autonomy. I call it the 5-year blinders rule. For exact 5 years, you put on mental horse blinders and commit to measuring only 2 internal numbers, completely ignoring what everyone around you is buying or doing.
Metric number 1 is your personal savings rate, the percentage of your take-home pay that goes directly into automated investments or debt reduction. Metric number 2 is your sleep score, how peaceful and anxious you feel when your head hits the pillow at night. If your savings rate is holding steady or growing, and you are sleeping peacefully without debt anxiety, you are winning the game, regardless of what car sits in your driveway. When you commit to 5 years of quiet, unglamorous execution behind closed doors, you emerge with a level of financial security that 99% of loud status chasers will never experience.
Chapter 9. You are exactly where you need to be.
Ultimately, the feeling of being behind is built on the false premise that life arrives at a single final destination at age 65. But financial freedom isn't a finish line where they hand you a trophy. It is the daily ability to make choices based on what you value rather than what you owe.
When you stop trying to catch up to an imaginary crowd, every dollar you save takes on a new meaning. You aren't investing to impress your college classmates or validate your ego. You are investing to buy back your future Tuesday mornings. There is no universal schedule governing human happiness. Whether you start building your financial foundation at 24, 36, or 48, you are not late. You are exactly where you need to be to begin.
Before you go today, I want to ask you a genuine question, and I would love for you to answer this honestly down in the comments below. What is one imaginary milestone or financial deadline you have been beating yourself up over that you are ready to let go of today? Whether it is owning a home by 30, hitting a specific salary number, or matching someone else's lifestyle, write it down in the comments right now, and let's leave that heavy baggage behind us together. If you want to build honest wealth without the pressure of artificial timelines, join us here. In our next video, I'm exploring why making more money rarely fixes bad financial psychology and what actually does. Take off the pressure. Stop watching everyone else's scoreboard and give yourself grace. I'll see you next time. You can't lose a race. You decide not to run.